Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Club Cosmic. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This is my very first YouTube video on my brand new channel, and I couldn't be more excited to finally be in this space. If you want to know what this channel is going to be about moving forward, please check out the description down below. It's going to give you a full synopsis on what you can expect from here on out. Starting with this week, we have our very first Club Cosmic collectible that I'm going to break down today, and that is the Geordi La Forge VISOR replica 1-to-1 scale from Factory Entertainment. This thing just released recently. It came out with only 500 pieces, and it is an absolute gorgeous piece that we're going to take a look at. Factory Entertainment before was known for giving their products a display box. They didn't really have a display stand. They presented it in this beautiful blue box with this piece of glass that usually had the Star Trek combat symbol etched into it. Amazing display case, but unfortunately, it was really difficult to be able to display your prop replica. So the guys at Factory Entertainment hit the drawing board again. They said, hey, we need to come up with a better display case option. So this replica right here is the first, at least for Star Trek replicas, to come out and have this full acrylic chrome display case. And I couldn't be more thankful for it. If you guys look at this, you will see that it does resemble the older Master Replicas display cases and like the EFX display cases. A lot of the guys at Factory Entertainment, a lot of the creative team, they did actually used to work for Master Replicas and EFX. And so they've brought a lot of those design choices to Factory Entertainment with that knowledge. So they decided to go ahead and have their bases resemble what it did before. A very simple, a very clean display base that really make those prop replicas stand out. One thing I do really like that they went to is the brushed chrome. Master Replicas, for a lot of their prop replicas, had a mirrored finish, which looked amazing only one time when you took it out of the box. Every time after that, every single piece of dust, every single little hair, if you looked at it too long, you would leave a print on that glass, and it showed, and it just used to drive people insane because you had this beautiful prop you were displaying, and then you see through the case, and then you see a small dust particle, and every time you look at it,
son of a bitch.
So the brushed chrome does a nice job still giving it that premium reflective quality without having to worry about any kind of prints or any kind of dust. It's really going to disguise a lot of that, which makes it really nice. Now, outside, the actual base is made up of black acrylic, that piano black acrylic. It's a nice gloss. With acrylic, if you guys collect, you understand acrylic is kind of the same thing, right? It really does not take a lot to put marks on it, to put little fingerprints on it. It scratches somehow. You'll take a prop replica out of its box, you'll put it on a shelf, you will not touch it, and then 2 months later you'll walk by and the sun will hit it and there'll be scratches all over it. Just how it is. It's how acrylic is. It's a very, very delicate piece of plastic. However, there's not really an alternative to really make things look nice, to give it that futuristic, to give it that premium feel and that sturdy quality. The only other option I think would be glass, which again is going to add weight. It's not practical in a commercial setting. Acrylic is really the only way you're going to have to do that. And so you're just going to have to stay on top of it, dusting and so on and so forth. Next thing I want to take a look at is the actual name plaque. It is a brushed chrome that matches the base, which is a really nice touch as well. You have your edition number. I ended up getting 37 out of 500, which is not bad at all. It's a very low number. Here's the really cool part about this plaque. I was so excited that this small, simple detail was included on this. It's the first time I'd ever seen this, me personally. Maybe other people have seen it on other replica stands, but this was the first time I'd ever seen this. So one of the issues with these plaques is a lot of times they're very slick on the base. It does not take a lot to tilt it. So when you're putting it up on the shelf, the plaque like slides forward a little bit and then it comes off kilted. And you gotta take it down, you gotta take it off. So to combat that, Factory Entertainment came up with this genius idea. It's so simple. In the base of the plaque is a magnet, and in the actual base of the stand is a magnet as well. So when you put it in the proper spot, it is magnetized. Really makes it feel secure. You get that satisfying pull, that click in with the magnet. You get to put it where you need it. That's almost 45 degrees with very little movement, right? Look at that. That is really cool. That is a really cool feature. I know some of you guys out there are like, okay, loser. So let's go ahead and we'll move on to the visor. This is a 1-to-1 scale replica of the visor that we see on Star Trek The Next Generation, used by Geordi La Forge. He's played by LeVar Burton. If you don't know who LeVar Burton is or Geordi La Forge, you will recognize him as the Reading Rainbow host.
Butterfly in the sky.
He also does play Geordi La Forge on Star Trek The Next Generation as the chief engineer.
Lieutenant Commander Geordi La Forge.
In fact, he actually auditioned for that part while he was doing Reading Rainbow. He got accepted into that part and he thought he was going to have to leave Reading Rainbow. Thankfully, the producers worked something out to where he was scheduled and he could actually do both shows at the same time. So one day he would do Reading Rainbow and then the next day he would go over to Star Trek The Next Generation and be the chief engineer. And actually, there are some episodes on Reading Rainbow where he talks about his second job.
I got a job. I got 2 jobs.
Geordi La Forge is a character, he was born blind, and so he was fitted with this visor.
Without it, you're blind.
Visor is an actual medical piece of equipment. It stands for Visual Instrument Sensory Organ Replacement. There is a backstory to it. It has a meaning, not just visor. So this piece was fitted onto Geordi La Forge to help him see. And what this does, Geordi actually gets signals that go directly into his brain. I'll explain that here in a second when we talk about these optical nodes right here. So it actually ties directly into his optic nerve, and he's receiving a sensory input. There's a couple episodes where we do get to see how it looks, how Geordi sees. It looks a lot like predator vision, all right? It's a lot of waveforms, so he can sense temperature variations, different EM waves. The visor goes through several variations as we progress through Star Trek The Next Generation. The first time that we see it in season 1, the visor looks completely different than how the rest of the seasons look. It has a mixed matched pin system that has bigger gaps in between each pin. It actually was designed and inspired off of a hair brunette that they sold in the 80s and 90s. You're gonna see how similar it looks to the visor. Some shots on the show, you can actually see the reflection of LeVar Burton's eyes. And by doing so, it does get rid of that illusion, right? It almost kind of breaks that fourth wall to where now you're like, oh, I can see his eyes, and now I'm not buying into it that he's blind.
Yeah, right.
So after season 1, the visor went back to the drawing board and they went ahead and redesigned it. And so this is the one that we see in season 2. One of the things that a lot of people were complaining about, and a lot of people in the community were really upset with this piece because it didn't represent a certain season or what they thought would be the perfect one. Blah, 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 blah. You can't satisfy everybody, and Factory did an amazing job releasing a piece that is a variation of different visors. And that is what they intended to do, and I'll explain that here in a second. But one of the things that's noticeable about the second season and this visor is this mesh inline. So this mesh was added so that it could also reduce the possibility in between these bars when hit by a certain light to be able to see LeVar Burton's eye. The other thing it also did was limit his vision even more. He lost all of his peripheral vision. He could not see when he was on set. In fact, he had to actually look for certain objects and teach himself that distant to learn his marking, right? Because if you put this on, you cannot see anything underneath. This thing was also known to give him terrible headaches. It was a real pain in the ass for LeVar Burton. However, it really does set up that character, and it really does become an iconic piece of the show.
Use your visor, Geordi.
Later, moving on out of season 2, they went ahead and they got rid of this mesh part. And so from season 3 to season 7, what we remember typically, because we saw it the most as the visor, is more or less this piece, but without the mesh behind it. It's just the bars right here. There were several variations of the visor, even moving forward. I mean, how it attached to LeVar Burton's head. They had some with an elastic band that went around so that when you put it on, it was hidden under his black hair. They had some with glasses hooks, so it just set on like a pair of glasses and hooked behind his ear. And they also had a version which is probably the most torturous version, where underneath these pieces right here, a C-clamp. And so what they would do for close-up shots, because they didn't want people to see that band or that hook, they would put the visor on, they would take these off, and they would tighten the clamp down onto LeVar Burton's head. So he had to act with this thing screwed into his temples.
Holy headache.
So with all of those versions, Factory Entertainment needed to decide which version they were going to really model their visor after. And looking at all of them, having all of the reference photos that they had, reaching out to actual people who owned screen-used versions of this visor, they decided to mix a bunch of different versions into one visor. One that has many components of different variations that we see. Something I want to pay close attention to are these brass bars right here. This is a really cool piece on this replica. The visor that the team had to actually physically inspect, what they noticed with these bars is that they were individually moving, which means they were actually freestanding in between these two pieces of metal. It wasn't like it was molded that way, which is really difficult and really cool. So Factory really wanted to put that detail in their replica and have each pin line up perfectly, then sandwich these two pieces of metal. You also have to remember, this is a commercially produced piece, okay? This isn't just 5 of them where they can do it by hand and then they release it. They did 500 of these. It sounds like a nightmare, and if you talk to them, they will agree that it was a pain in the ass to try to get that lined up. But wow, how cool is that these actually do freely move, and it really gives it, again, that extra level of authenticity that the real visors had. Moving on over here to the side, and you have these beautiful little red cogs here that are the representative of the optic input that goes directly into Geordi's head. So in a couple of these episodes of Next Generation, you'll see him, he'll take the visor off, and you'll see the optical input.
Is there something on your mind?
This was another really cool piece that Factory Entertainment decided to add and make it customizable. There were several versions and close-ups of this visor where you can see that this piece right here was protruding. There were just an equal amount of shots where they had a variation of the visor where it was suppressed and wasn't actually sticking out. So what Factory Entertainment decided to do to be able to satisfy both of this is they made this piece a protruding magnet. So you are able to display this with the recessed optical input port. It's a great idea. It's a fun little piece that, again, attention to detail that they did, and then you can just click it right back on. As far as the shape goes for this visor, specifically designed for LeVar Burton's head. That is why a lot of people are unable to actually wear this. It's actually not bad. There's a little bit of a gap right here. Maybe if I just keep looking up.
What an idiot.
I can't really wear it, obviously the way that I would love to just wear this around. If you were to take this prop replica and go to LeVar Burton and ask him to put this on, it would fit perfectly to his nose arch and around his forehead. So that's a really cool piece as well. Putting this all together now on the display stand is where we meet another friction point for a lot of people, and that is this acrylic bar right here. I can see where they wanted to go. They wanted to make sure that the visor would be secure. They didn't want it to really slide around anywhere or have it up elevated, and then the slightest little bump, the visor would fall off and dent the base and damage the case. So I completely understand why they wanted this secure. However, it does become a little bit of an issue, right, that this bar is directly in front of the piece. It doesn't really elevate it. It's not really putting that prop up like a display stand should, where it's really presenting it to somebody and giving you a full field of vision on what this piece is. The sides, not too big of a deal, okay? The sides are not too big of a deal because most people are gonna be looking at this head on. However, this point right here, even though it is a clear acrylic, it's still a little bit of an eyesore. There's not really a way to get around that. This is just one of those little, Okay, so placing it on the display stand, and then go ahead and we'll put the dust cover on. And there it is. There is your fully displayed Geordi La Forge visor. I think that Factory Entertainment did a really good job with this piece. I appreciate the redesign of this display case. The last thing I really want to say is thank you so much to the customer support team over at Factory Entertainment, specifically the whole team and Barry. A little bit of an insight for you guys. This is actually my second visor that I received. I got my first one days after they released them, and unfortunately my base had some manufacturing defects. defects, which happens. I sent pictures to Factory Entertainment. I reached out to their customer service line. Immediately, they gave me a shipping label. I sent this back to them and they gave me a fully inspected visor that was inspected personally by Barry. He stickered everything and he initialed it. So you know that he actually did put eyes on this product. When you're shopping around for a company that you're going to be spending a lot of money with, you want to make sure that the customer support is there and present. You don't want to be left high and dry. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Please let me know down in the comments below if this is something that you're going to go ahead and pick up. They do have some of these still left on their website. Again, limited edition to 500, and they're not going to be making any more. Or is this one that you passed up for one of the reasons that I talked about? If you haven't already, again, please like, share, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you do not miss a Club Cosmic video. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time in the club.